Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, your significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, this show is for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. Well, if you missed our last show, please go back and check it out because we talked about intimacy in all the different formats. But today's show is about the one intimacy that Coach K, who's also a certified clinical sexologist, and myself, as a sex therapist, get all the time. It is about sexual intimacy. Well, how are you doing, Coach K?
I'm doing wonderful today. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm getting ready for one of my retreats. So I'm off tomorrow to Costa Rica. So I am just so excited.
Send us some sun this way.
Yes. Yes, here in Florida and in Costa Rica, the weather is just beautiful.
Oh, I would love that.
Yes, and that's how, I don't know, for me, and even connecting in what I do, I feel better when I'm warm.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a window that sits right behind me that's normally, when it's nice and sunny, it's open, and the rays that warm my back, it just feels so good. And it energizes you.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But I know that there are millions, including yourself, who are out there in the cold. Yes, doing all the snowstorms, and I see in the news there's like 4 or 5 coming back to back.
Yes. Yeah, so your retreat is right on time for all of your lovely couples and you.
Yes. Yes, and I went into the whole retreat business because people are always calling and they're asking questions about sex. I don't know, do you get those?
I do. And which I'm very grateful that people are asking about it finally, instead of just kind of quashing it.
Right, right. And in some realms, sometimes people feel like you can't even talk about it, but it's so important in relationships and marriages, especially to talk about it, to get it out in the open, to see what you like and what you dislike, and all this other realm.
Absolutely. We have to keep that discussion open and going.
Right, right. And so if people are out there listening and they're thinking, well, they're having issues with sex and they see all the different titles, such as a sexologist, a sex therapist, a sex coach. Yeah. How do you define yourself?
So for me, as a certified sexologist or a sexuality coach, I look at myself as one that does, I don't do any type of diagnosing. I save that for the licensed professionals. So it's almost like, I always like to talk about it like as a football game, because we're all familiar with football. Pretty much everyone knows how to play the game. So a lot of people know how to have sex. But we depend on our coach in that game to give us strategic plays to ensure that we win that game. So for myself, I look at myself as that coach. Are you communicating appropriately? Are you sexually matched? How is the hygiene? So we talk about all of those areas outside of the physical act of, hey, you put this in here and this is how you do this. So I kind of talk about everything around that. So as a coach, I just give those helpful plays, strategies to have a fulfilling sex life.
Okay, okay. And I do something very similar as a therapist. Sometimes we do go into the diagnosing part when there's dysfunctions. And also when there is like questions or things aren't working right, we try to figure out kind of like what you said about what's stopping the performance,
Yeah.
because many times it's other things outside of the mechanics.
Oh yeah, that is huge. Like the first thing I always like to ask is to ensure that they've been to a medical professional first. And if they have and there's nothing actually medically going on, then I don't mind taking a surface look. And if it seems like it's more deep rooted where therapy may be necessary, that's when I would refer out.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Yeah. And I do something similar in the sense of many times there's sometimes mental things that impact sex.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Whether it's, being so depressed that you don't want to take care of yourself to have sex, or being very, what I see a lot is very anxious and have so
Mm.
many things in your mind going, that impact sex.
That is huge. And you know how many people we don't even think about it, that mental block that can live in a space that we don't think about, or that subconscious, you're really stressing or thinking about something, but it's not in your foreconscious. You just don't even think about it. And sex is usually the first thing that goes and the last thing on your mind when you're stressed.
Yeah, there is a good book I have to think about in a moment, but it talks about how when we're stressed, that some of us have the breakers on when we're sex. We're like we don't want to be touched, and some
Hmm.
of us have the accelerator.
Mm,
Have you heard that before?
I have. I Without going into too much detail, I've been in that place on both ends. I've had my feet on the accelerator and my foot on the brake in different points in life.
Yeah, and when it comes to couples, that's difficult, especially if one is a breaker and one is an accelerator, like I want sex, and one's like, no, 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 or like some people when they have major arguments,
Yes,
somebody says,
that's
let's just, have sex. Others are like, I don't even think I want to be in the same room with you. Why are you even thinking of this right now?
yeah,
Yes.
that's a great debate with a lot of people. To say, well, how can you have sex with someone you're upset with? And for me, I'm like, I still love my husband and I have needs, so I don't have to talk to you afterwards.
Yes. Yes, and sex is actually very healthy because it is a form of release.
Yes, it
So
is.
when you're stressed, it's one of those ways to release. So when people think, how can that person really think about having sex right now? And that's because they want a release.
Absolutely. From what I understand, without going into the actual medical side, it helps a little bit with nerves and anxiety. Scientifically speaking, somewhere down the line, I don't know that part of it, but I know it can be helpful in that place too. Like if your nerves are, if maybe you're going to for a big interview the next day, and you're just really wound up the day before, a good release can help.
Yeah. Yes, because it produces that those endorphins that will help relax the body.
Mm.
Yeah. And some people are even more productive after you
Uh-huh.
have sex because your mind is at relax, and then you can sit there and concentrate on data or a variety of other stuff. While for others, sex just wiped them out and they need to sleep for the next 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah, you got to. So it's a wonder while when all of the people that had to work at home, productivity may have gone up because more people were spending time at home with each other.
Yes, I hope that happened. Yes, yes. However, I know on your end and on my end, people come to us with problems.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. So in the last 2 years, I've seen more sexual issues than ever before.
yeah.
And part of it, even as she just mentioned, as people are being so stuck together
Hmm.
that they're there all the time. They're working and sleeping and everything. So there is no air.
Right.
And when there's no air, there is no ability to have fire, which means passion.
Absolutely. That is much necessary. And then it's just stuffy, and you then the communication kind of goes down, and so that further puts a halt on any type of connection or bonding.
Right, definitely, yeah. But before, I know we just started jumping into the conversation, but I want to highlight, of course, our charity of the month, the Love Foundation. And they are a great foundation because they help people and communities develop and practice unconditional love. And even as we're talking about sex, and we're going to go into more detail in a few moments, but it's also about being there for your partner and providing that unconditional love. So we're going to take a break. But when we get back, we're going to go more deep into sex. And do you do it when your partner wants it? And if you don't want it? And even going back to the basics of when do we start teaching people about sex? We'll be back in a moment.
Are you wanting a vacation in paradise? A vacation to rekindle the passion. A vacation without the kids. A vacation where you can learn how to communicate, where you and your partner actually hear each other and gain insight. If so, vacation counseling is your next vacation. Dr. April Brown has created vacation counseling in Southwest Florida as a perfect option for you and your partner. Our retreats are one couple at a time. We have a variety of packages available to choose from, including virtual couples retreats. If you and your partner are interested in vacation counseling, please visit us at vacationcounseling.com for more information on pricing and packages. Also, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To keep track of the latest news, stories, activities, or coupons on vacation counseling and Dr. April's other services, we encourage you to sign up to receive a monthly newsletter called Intimate Connections at draprilbrown.com. Remember, if you and your partner are struggling with communication and intimacy, and you all are looking for a retreat to connect, vacation counseling can be your next vacation in Southwest Florida.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. So if you're out there listening and you have questions about sex and you're on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube and you have a question, please feel free to put a question out there, and Coach K and I will do our best to provide an answer. So, Coach K, you have 5 children, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and I have one. When do you think it's the best time to teach kids about sex?
I honestly think that the age appropriate conversation should begin around the age of 2 to 4-ish. And I think when people think about, sex conversation, it's always intercourse, but it's teaching, the anatomy and good touching, bad touching, and boundaries. So those age appropriate conversations should start not drilled in, but just on a consistent basis, so that, if a 4-year-old's going to go off to daycare, and they should be able to say, so and so, touch me, and I didn't like it, or they touched me here. So being able to teach those begins around 2 to 4 years old for me, and it doesn't stop.
No, and I agree with you. It definitely needs to be before they start school about the anatomy and teaching kids about body parts. And like you said, it doesn't stop there. One of the things I've noticed is that most parents only talk about sex, but they don't really talk about sexual intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in talking about sexual intimacy, when do you think that should begin?
I would say at a maturity age, maybe around the 15-ish, 16-ish mark would be, not encouraging it to happen, but being able to talk about what that looks like what that feels like, the importance of why maybe you should wait because
Right.
of what the ramifications of it could be.
Right, right. And I agree with you. And I think maybe even starting middle school, because sometimes kids, and I've worked as a school counselor, they try these sexual activities and they don't really understand the meaning and the emotional aspect.
Yeah,
And you have to do more as a parent than just say no or wrap it up or whatever the case may be.
absolutely. The old saying, don't come home with a baby. That
Right.
was a big thing for a certain dynamic of folks, but then you came home with everything else. So it's having bigger conversation. And S. Ford, that's my husband. He said hi. I said
Okay, awesome.
hi. He's there on YouTube.
Oh, good, 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 good. So, since he's there, so when you got married, because I've dealt with a lot of couples, and even myself, or even with my own mom, did your mom or anyone teach you about sex as you enter marriage?
I didn't get a whole lot of conversations from my mom. She literally just came up in the era of don't bring a baby home. that
Right,
that was the
right.
conversation, and I think that's why I'm so vocal with our children.
Yeah, yeah, because I do think you have to do more than that. And I don't know, I've worked with a few individuals where they've been saving themselves for their husband.
Yeah,
Yes, which is great. But then when it comes to the marriage, they're freaked out. They're scared. They're like,
yeah,
yes, yeah, it's going to hurt. Or they just, yeah, what's the point? They just go through all of this. Yeah. So I do think it's important to start talking about it.
absolutely. I have a 10 ways to I do, which is a premarital coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, sex is absolutely one of those 10 items to talk about. Because I watched a show where, that married at first sight thing, where one
Yes.
of the girl was a virgin, and her now husband, it freaked him out a little bit, but she was absolutely like, yeah, we're married, but I still don't know you. And he's like, well, I don't want to really. So yeah, that's a conversation that absolutely it would have been helpful, I think, if she would have had some in-depth conversations, maybe with her parents or with maybe a school counselor or someone in the sexual education realm for this
Mm-hmm.
day that was coming.
Right. I've had one client recently who told me that she felt like it was her husband's job to help her understand her body. In fact, they've been married for, I think, like maybe half a year and they have not had sex yet. And she's been waiting for him to show how to do things. Yeah, she's afraid. And when he tries to teach her something, she's like, you know, but she keeps saying, yeah, I always was thought it was my husband's job.
Oh wow. And
Yeah,
that's definitely how some people are raised, and that's why I think that conversation of sex and intimacy should never stop, and especially in a marriage, even in the dating phase.
exactly.
Especially in the dating phase, I guess. You want to find that out.
Yes, definitely. And I think and even in the dating phase, it's also about self intimacy.
Hmm.
Yeah. So some people think the word, and I'm just going to say masturbation is like evil or wrong.
Yes.
But how can I put it? You have to understand your body before you can explain it to someone else. I think I don't know, that's my philosophy when it comes to sexual intimacy.
I completely agree with you. I did a talk, and it's here on my YouTube channel about 3 weeks ago, and I had, what do you feel about masturbation in marriage? And when I tell you that the comments were over 600 people, and it really gave a great indication that there is not a lot of people who understand the importance of learning self first, and that it's not this dirty game that you just play with yourself. It's truly you getting in tune and being intimate with your body so that you're able to share and teach with this person who you're about to share your body with.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very erotic. I've known couples, and I've experienced it myself, where they've masturbated together, so it's not like a secret. You know what I'm saying?
That
And
mirroring.
yeah, mirroring. And then the other aspect is that sometimes one gender feels, I guess, more jealous when they talk about intimacy and dildos and vibrators, and they're like, oh my gosh, they get jealous about the whole thing when it's really, I look at the whole sexual intimacy as a playground.
Oh, absolutely. And I see that comment on Facebook where she was saying that growing up in the house, it was taboo to talk about sex.
Right.
And that is probably where that creates stories in our mind that, okay, well, it must be dirty, or it must be a sin, or it must be bad if we're not allowed to talk about it. And so that creates these grown-up then stories. And so it's very unfair to the partner who you're introducing into your world at that point.
Definitely. And I wonder how many couples really talk about sex when they're dating.
I think it's so fearful. Charlotte Creative here on YouTube said, hey, and then she said, she think the main problem with finding out someone to date is her openness. And so while she may want to talk about, hey, let's get this conversation started while we're in a dating phase, because to talk about it after you say I do, oh boy, that's a lot to unpack. And then you have guys that are like, well, I don't want her to think I just want sex. And it's like, well, are you talking about let's jump into bed? Or are you talking about what is it going to look like?
Right. And then, for females and males, the talk, how can I put it? It's different because when a female talks about it and stuff, sometimes a guy might think, wow, she's very out there, while men can talk about it. Yeah. So I can understand that it can be difficult in dating.
I can imagine. That's exactly what her, comment was saying. It's her openness has guys looking like, ooh, whereas that you want to know. I read a story of a young lady who got with a guy who had a fetish, and it was something that was out of her comfort zone.
Right.
And you definitely want to know that before you tie the knot, because it's kind of a done deal almost when you go and tie the knot. So those conversations, we should all be, as adults, if we're mature enough to date and bring somebody into our space, we absolutely should be mature enough to talk about what we want, need, and desire without thinking that, okay, tomorrow we're going to try all of those things.
Right. But I get what she's saying, because the same with me. When I talk about sex, they're like, oh my gosh, people get so embarrassed, or they focus so much also on body parts. And some people say, does size matter, and that's all a person can focus on.
Yes. I definitely did a talk about does size matter, and that's another huge topic. If you're going to save yourself until later and you never find out what you got working with there, will it matter to you? I've seen people actually, because it was Facebook, where I found out that this person is of a certain size. Should I divorce them? And I'm like, wow. That's huge.
Yeah. So it's better to at least peak before you get married. Yes. Yeah. And then I also think, size is one part, but how can I put it? Size does matter, but also that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can still get aroused or even have full orgasm without even touching in some
Yeah.
aspect, because sex really starts here.
Absolutely. And the body just follows. And then you can have an amazing size and then you just don't know what to do with it. So then what? You
Right.
know? Yeah, if we're not able to mentally bond and connect, then that it's just noise and action, and it's a wasted,
Hmm.
without getting too graphic, it's just wasted.
Right, right. Do you think men and women view sex differently? Have you seen that?
I see that at the core, when you peel back a bunch of layers, the view is pretty much the same, but on the surface, I think surface wise, it's a little bit different. And I don't know how much society plays in that surface view.
Hmm.
Because men, just like women, honestly, they want to be desired. They want to be taken care of. They
Right,
want to be sometimes taken control of. But can they actually say that without a Facebook post? Oh, he wanted me to do this, or he just did.
right.
It's kind of difficult that we as women are allowed in our bedroom to just be vulnerable, but our men are not.
Right, right. And I think that vulnerability in men and also in some females, it's about that emotional part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It's the feeling. And I think that is what's really different when we talk about sexual intimacy
Hmm.
versus just sex.
Right. Big difference. I,
Hmm.
it's a intimate moments academy that I do online, and I always say, because his physical is her emotional,
Right,
and I think that connects with so many people, because it's like, yeah, while she's thinking all he wants to do is have sex, well, that's how he connects emotionally. That's his emotional
right,
connection to you. We have one of the safest places that someone can feel. We have wounds. That's where we all came from. One of the safest places you ever felt. And so if that's his calming place, maybe he's high stress, maybe he, just had a bad day and he just wants to be with you because that's how he connects with you emotionally. We all have to take that step back and view it from a 50-foot view versus
hmm,
right in front.
right. I say it a little bit different, but the same concept in the sense of that men really see that physical attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And and when I'm explaining it to a man, I said, women, just like you saw those, tits and butts very attractive, women love emotions.
Mm.
That's
Yes.
what gets us aroused. Yeah. Um, but I've had a few guys who have lost that attraction for their wives, whether their wives have gained weight or a variety of things. Maybe they've had to breast feed a few children.
Yes.
Yes, yes. And they're coming to me and they're like, it works when they masturbate or they look at 50 million other things, but when they look at their wife, they have no desire.
Yeah. I think about that as, you know, did they take time to build their intimacy bank?
Exactly.
And when you do so many other things outside of just the physical aspect of just sex, and you build that intimacy bank, when those times come that, she's just finished feeding the third child and the breasts are no longer up here saying, hey baby, or they're down here like, hey, come and get me. That you built that bank up, and there's still a good, you, the physical attraction goes beyond that physical body, if that makes sense.
Right, right. And I love how you put that of building the bank. And yeah, yeah. And that includes doing activities, connecting with the person emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the retreat that you're going to be doing this weekend, that's helping building their bank. They're building their
Right.
intimacy bank.
Yes. Yes. And I'm totally excited about that because we are doing a lot of activities and talking and connecting emotionally. And also, what one of the things that I also talk about is spirituality and God. And many people like you can you put the word God and sex together? Or and I'm saying God should be, if that is your belief system, the higher power, because many people
Hmm.
have a higher power, that's your belief system. Go ahead and introduce or have him in the bedroom, have him in the connection.
Right. Because if you truly believe in many things, how did you get here? Haha.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, yes. And I do believe sex wasn't just created to have children. It's about pleasure. It's about having fun and being on a playground.
Especially for a species that was born with an organ that was strictly for pleasure. I mean, we're the model of pleasure.
Yeah, yeah. I know we may have people out there listening who have busy lives, kids, and a variety of stuff. And they're like, how can they find the time to play with their husband when they have children and a variety of things that take away their attention?
We having 5 children. My husband was working full time. I was working full time. I was also building a business on the side. I made time to, if it meant that when we got off at a certain time, we would, from the time we met, we always showered together. It
Okay.
was just that was us building our intimacy bank. If it was time to cook, we for a while I did the Hello Fresh meals where they send you all of the stuff
Right.
together, and sometimes the kids would help too. So it doesn't always have to be, in the romper room getting it on. It could be those building bank activities that, if maybe the kids are watching TV, let's sneak off in the bathroom real quick. 10 minutes may be all we need. So it's the Intimate Moments Academy. I do sex, which is sharing, experiencing, and X-ray. And the experiencing, it's one of those things I say is make time. Period.
Hmm.
There's nothing else. It's if you have enough time to tell me I can't X, Y, and Z, that was probably 3 minutes of probably all the time that you needed to maybe hold hands, maybe kiss on the forehead, do a chest to chest hug,
Right.
quick hand job, something.
Right. Right. I love how you said make time, period, that there's no exception.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's really good also, that you use those things such as HelloFresh and stuff because, can I put it, that also relieves some of the stress on usually the mom or at least one of the parent, which allows more free time because sometimes we run out of energy because we're trying to wash clothes, cook dinner, feed the pet. Yeah, yeah. So it's okay.
Breathe.
Breathe. It's okay to get help. Yes.
Yes. That's
Hmm.
a form of intimacy, getting help. Hiring a housekeeper or maid twice a month to come in so you all can sit out back while the maid or housekeeper's in the house cleaning, you and your partner, and you watch the kids run around while you guys just engage in a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. It um, allows people to connect. You
Yes.
know, I do think, especially in this world, we're so busy
Hmm.
that we're running around so much we don't have the time to connect. And I feel like I don't know, if you've had the experience of a lot of people with performance anxiety, which is when you're in the bedroom and you cannot perform.
Hmm.
And I've noticed it's many times it's because our minds are so busy with other things that our body is in the bedroom, but
Yeah.
our mind is somewhere else in the past or the present.
Yeah. Or so busy, like I hope I can, get her there, or I hope I can get him there. And then when it's time, you're so overly anxious about the act that that mind blocks and shuts the rest of the body down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when really it's just the being about playing. And so, one of the things that I work on is helping you be mindful.
Mm.
Yeah, be mindful of your present moment, of finding things in the room on your partner's body. Or also, there's a variety of different scents and sounds. And I know that you sell stuff on your website that are
Yeah,
toys or erotic stuff to help keep people in the present moment with their partner.
absolutely. We have the scented candles, some of the pheromone infused like body washes and sprays. Whenever I do events, I kind of spray it at my table, and it just makes people feel good.
Hmm.
That scent is like you can see their shoulders kind of go down a little bit. It's relaxing and calming, like my diffuser I have here now.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it helps keep people in the moment.
Yeah,
Right, and I probably one of the number one advice I can give people if for sexual intimacy is to stay present.
yeah, that's an important piece, because if all parts do not align as one, and there's a gap in whatever's happening, it's just like if it was a gap in the road, there's going to be a big bump, and it's going to shake everything else up.
Hmm. Yes, and just enjoy the play and not
Yep.
worry so much about the outcome because many people, and we haven't really talked a little bit about, but they get so focused on orgasms
Oh yes.
or coming together that that's all they focus on and they miss the connection of playing.
Absolutely. The entire art of it. To me, and that's just my personal opinion, to me an orgasm is a bonus. If you reach that bonus, awesome. But if you're present, you're going to get your bonus pretty often.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for those out there who feel like, because some women cannot have orgasms through regular penetration.
Right.
It's astounding. I think like 60% of women.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, which is okay. And you would only really kind of know that so much if you learn to go back and play with your body.
There you go.
Yes,
And
yes,
circle it around.
yes, yeah. Then you realize how you can have an orgasm, um, and then you can talk it through with your partner.
Yes.
Yeah, and then when you guys are there, you just focus on playing, enjoying each other's body to the fullest.
And being able to talk that through with your partner is important, because if they feel like they can't get you there, then that can lead them to feeling inadequate, in some kind of way. Whereas all you had to do is say, well, the way my body works is I need X, Y, and Z.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I know someone made a comment. Um, if you've had a great partner in your life, and let's say a great sexual partner, and they provided great things for you, and then you're going through other stuff and you haven't found that, I know it can be depressing. However, one thing to keep in mind is to learn from each partner,
Yeah.
and if you have that open communication with the next
Mm.
partner, you can say, hey, this is what I like, and to see if that works out. I mean, sometimes it doesn't.
You gotta trial and error, the entire time. You take bits and pieces. Like the young lady on YouTube said, you know, the best partner she ever had is no longer an option, and no one's come close. So it's like, do you take some of those things that made that partner the best, and you not necessarily say, hey, I need you to do exactly like this, or we
Right.
can't do it, but how did you maneuver your body during those times? The parts that you can control, you want to be able to bring that forward, because what was comfortable for one person, it may not be for the other. So how do you make that compromise or alter it so that you're able to be pleasurable and to be able to please?
Right, right. And sexual intimacy, it's important for a lot of us, but there's some people who it's not important for. And that's why you got to, like you said, have those conversations. Because if it is important for you and your partner is not, it's a conversation to have so you don't settle.
Yeah, and it sounds like right here, you just became celibate at that
Right.
point, you know.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, until you can find something that it's good and for you, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You have to do what's best for you so that when it's time, you're fully present, you're ready, and you know exactly what it is that works for you.
Right, right. But over time, in a long-term marriage, things are going to change.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
And that's where, building that intimacy bank helps, because as you build the bank, the bond in your mind opens, and new levels of, hey, I don't know where this came from, but I just want to try this.
hmm
It's amazing when it
hmm
when it progresses.
right, right, right. And I do think that sometimes not having sex right away in a relationship helps builds that bank.
It does, because you have that, verbal, mental, vibrational energy connection, that anticipation of where it's going to be. But of course, anticipation without expectation is always going to be key to that piece.
Yeah. Can you clarify that more?
Oh, absolutely. When we have expectations of what the sex is supposed to feel like or what it's supposed to give us, we we can mess up that anticipation period. So being able to just anticipate being present with your partner and enjoying sex as it comes, um, and taking off that expectation piece of it, then you're not looking to, oh, it better be like this, or I'm just not going to like it, or I'm going to be disappointed. So anticipation without expectation is always going to be the best outcome, because then you can talk about it at the end. I didn't expect anything, but I can tell you what I did like. Maybe I didn't like this thing so much, but I really enjoyed this because I had no expectation of
Right,
it.
right, right. And when you don't have any expectations, you really stay in the present moment
Oh,
and
absolutely.
enjoy the playground. Yes.
Yes.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Well, we're going to take a little break, and then when we come back, we're going to tell our listeners about the upcoming podcast that we have coming up with our guests.
It's time for the Fools in Love Couples Retreat. Join Coach K for a weekend of sharing, exploring, and learning all about the amazing world of relationships and marriage. You will explore and discuss topics such as communication, intimacy, sex, work-life balance, infidelity, and more. For further information on the Fools in Love Couples Retreat, visit foolsinlove2022.eventbrite.com or info at loveandintimacy101.com.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Well, Coach K, you and I have had a great conversation about sexual intimacy, and
Yes, I enjoyed it.
yes, yes, hopefully we were able to provide some valid information out there. So, coming up next week, I'll actually be in Costa Rica, and we're going to talk some more about retreats. And then starting in March 10th, we're going to start our guest backup, and we will have Jerry Few on how to handle conflict in your life, dealing with emotional intimacy. And on March 17th, Cassie Christopher, she's going to also talk about emotional eating with self love. If, yeah, yes. So please check us out. Don't forget to think about the lovefoundation.com, and don't forget to follow us on social media. Yes. Where could they find us, Coach K?
They can find us at bringingintimacyback.com and on all social media platforms, Bringing Intimacy Back.
Okay, awesome. Well, we will see you guys next week at 3:30 on Thursdays, where we talk about intimacy, and we look forward to speaking with you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back. We hope you enjoyed it. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com or Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. For Dr. April Brown's 4-book series, Improving Intimacy, you can also find her as an author on Amazon. Available in Kindle, ebook, and paperback.